Hi everybody, I'm Tyler. I'm a research student at RMIT University, and welcome to the presentation walking you through the theory, objectives, and method behind the research project and upcoming thesis called Occupational and Career Implications of Human Capital Specificity, a fine arts case study. There's general consensus that people with higher levels of education, on average, earn a larger income than people with low levels of education. Despite that, a 2011 report from the Center for Labour Market Research called The Private Rate of Return to a University Degree in Australia found one exception to this common view. Out of the fields of education they identified, only a degree in visual and performing arts had a negative monetary rate of return. The report states that typically it is a very good decision to complete a bachelor's degree, with the obvious exception of visual and performing arts. Added to that, recent survey results from Graduate Careers Australia rate fine arts graduates very poorly in terms of employment gained after graduation relative to other university graduates. It's been suggested that at the heart of a fine arts education is a curriculum that gives students the ability to experiment, develop their problem-solving skills, creative faculties, and the ability to conceptualize. With this in mind, it stands to reason that in an era like ours, one that has seen a growing understanding of the relationship between creativity, culture, and economics, fine arts graduates should be performing better in the labor market. Creative economics author John Hawkins writes, "Creativity is not new, and neither is economics. But what is new is the nature and the extent of the relationship between them, and how they combine to create extraordinary value and wealth." This research proposes that the negative monetary rate of return and the disappointing numbers from Graduate Careers Australia fail to fully capture the ambit of a degree in fine arts, in that the payback or the justification for this type of education can't easily be quantified. Despite the fact that fine arts graduates are earning a negative monetary rate of return and not succeeding in the labor market as well as other university graduates, ex-post data does not tell the full story. While those statistics are important, the returns to an investment, whether that's an investment in education or one made on the stock market, can be viewed from both an ex-post as well as an ex-ante position. The objective of this research is to get a clearer picture of the ex-ante returns involved in a degree in fine arts. So, what is ex-post and ex-ante? Ex-post, translated from Latin, means after the fact. It's a retrospective way of looking, and ex-post returns are another way of saying the actual returns one receives from an investment. Ex-ante, translated from Latin, means before the event. It's a prospective way of looking. It refers to future events, and ex-ante returns are another way of saying the predicted returns on an investment. Using an ex-ante analysis allows for an idea of future movements and expected returns from an investment. So, how is this research going to give us a clearer picture of the ex-ante returns involved in a fine arts degree? The work will map the professional life cycle of fine arts graduates living in Melbourne through both a survey and an interview designed to explore the nature of the human capital accumulated as part of a fine arts education in order to examine its use value in employment and living standards. What is human capital? What do we mean by the nature of human capital? And how will examining the nature of the human capital accumulated during a fine arts degree and its use value in employment and living conditions allow us to get a clearer picture of the ex-ante returns to a degree in fine arts. Most people think of capital as physical assets that yield income, like a production line in a factory, a mine in Western Australia, a bank account, or shares in a company. But these assets are not the only types of capital. Human capital is the mental toolkit a person has. It's the stock of skills, knowledge, and experience a person has that allows them to produce and solve problems and increase productivity. We benefit from accumulating human capital just as we benefit from accumulating physical capital. And of course, it's called human capital because we can't be separated from our knowledge, skills, or values in the way that we can be separated from our financial and physical assets. And when we talk about the nature of human capital, we're talking about general human capital versus specific human capital. General human capital is valued by all potential employers, like having good communication skills, confidence, or the ability to relate to and work well with others. Specific human capital involves any number of skills or knowledge that have value in one particular company, occupation, or industry. General human capital is more flexible and transferable to other industries and jobs, while specific human capital is more productive, but it's less flexible or as easily transferable as general human capital. How will examining the nature of the human capital accumulated during a fine arts degree and its use value in employment and living conditions give us a clearer picture of the ex-ante returns to a degree in fine arts? At the outset of an investment in education, it seems that it would make sense to base an ex-ante return analysis on ex-post data, on the numbers and stats like those posted by Graduate Careers Australia. A lot of ex-ante analysis is, in fact, based on ex-post data. But it's important to remember that our economy and our labor market are in a perpetual state of flux. Nobody can predict the future with 100% accuracy, and as a result, ex-post, or the actual outcomes, may differ significantly from an ex-ante return analysis. Prior to entering tertiary education, ex-ante forecasts regarding professional trajectory can be rendered obsolete by unanticipated turbulence in the economy and labor market by the time a university degree is finished. This cartoon sums up the potential differences between ex-ante and ex-post returns. The ex-post returns might not always come to fruition how someone imagines them in the future. In order to get a clearer ex-ante picture, the research will treat the educational investment under uncertainty. Economists generally regard education as the most important investment in one's human capital. Every investment is made under uncertainty, and the educational investment is no different. On top of that, accounting for uncertainty in the educational investment is particularly important when we consider the fact that this decision is typically taken by teenagers, whose knowledge about the labor market, job opportunities, and returns on investment is probably not very comprehensive. Underneath the rubric of uncertainty in the educational investment, it's the general human capital that is more sought after. Why is this? While specific human capital is more productive, it's not as easily transferable to other industries and professions. General human capital, being more flexible and easily transferable, is better able to withstand unanticipated future turbulence in the economy and the labor market. By treating the educational investment under uncertainty to explore the nature of the human capital accumulation, to examine the skills and competencies fine arts graduates have accumulated, and to see where they're using them throughout the course of their professional lives, and not simply looking at earlier ex-post data detailing income and employment figures, the research will present a more complete and comprehensible picture of the ex-ante returns involved in a fine arts degree. In the process of getting a clearer ex-ante picture, the findings will identify a number of key components involved in the returns to a degree in fine arts that will have implications for potential, current, and former fine arts students, as well as others outside of the fine arts department. Also, while a substantial literature exists on the relationship between educational attainment and the return to education, there is much less work on the large variance in returns by degree field. Understanding why there is such variance in returns across fields of education is important when considering the role of education as a determinant of economic success. There are a total of 3 hypotheses that this research is working with. Fine arts graduates tend to accumulate more general than specific human capital gains. The accumulation of these general human capital gains allows fine arts graduates to work in a variety of different industries and professions. Fine arts graduates make an informed ex-ante decision to enter a fine arts program. How is this research going to get done? Participants will be primarily recruited through word of mouth and social networking in Melbourne's artists community, as well as researching via online communities. The first stage of the research will be conducted through an anonymous online survey. After completing the online survey, a follow-up interview will be conducted with volunteer participants. The principal research student can be contacted via email at the following address to make arrangements. A mixed methods approach to data analysis will be employed. However, as human capital is difficult to quantify, since it involves a variety of intangible elements, most notably skill development, the emphasis of data analysis will be weighed more heavily on the qualitative approach. The finished product will be submitted as a thesis for the completion of a higher degree by research. I hope you enjoyed this presentation, and thank you very much for listening.